everybody. I am very excited to introduce you to the Kohana Collective, which is our new podcast. And this is our very first episode.
Awesome.
Oh, I feel so
And
honored.
It's
yeah,
such
I
an
mean,
honor.
this is a very exciting moment for all of us. And we're here with a new partner of ours. We're very excited to introduce you to her and what she's doing and to the podcast. And of course, my name is Noah Kirschbaum. I'm one of the co-founders of Kohana, and my partner is Dean Otto. And Dean, why don't you introduce
Yeah,
yourself
sure.
and our
Thanks, Noah.
guest?
Yeah, hey, just wanted real quick to introduce you to Caroline Howell. And Caroline is you presently in Playa Venal, which is in Panama, an incredible place. Just this amazing, reminds me of Hawaii in many ways, like old school Hawaii. Just an awesome place. And I had the pleasure of meeting Caroline and hearing about her development and learning more about her and what she does at a conference in Panama that I attended. Gosh, this is what now, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So really interesting. God, I learned so much. It almost is scary a little bit because there's sort of like an awareness that I've sort of learned now from that conference on, food security and things like that that I'd never like really thought of before, or I had thought about, but never really sort of went beyond just the surface of, right? And so being in Panama and listening to Caroline and some of the other people that we spoke with was really interesting and a great education. And we've learned a tremendous amount. And we want to build it into our model and learn from what they're doing and expand on it through our co-ownership model. And we're certainly privileged and excited to be in partnership with Caroline and selling the first phase of the canopy development. Is it called the canopy development entire area? Is that what you called it? Yeah.
Our operating company, Canopy Development Company,
Okay.
and then we have two real estate projects. One is Coco Bolo, one is Canopy. So the names
Awesome.
all get a
Okay, so
little
they're separate.
confusing, but yes,
It's a little confusing, yeah.
yeah.
But we're going to learn. We're going to learn. But anyway, Caroline, so maybe as an introduction, maybe you could just start with like, where are you from? You're not from Panama, right? So how did you get to Panama? Why Panama? And describe to us maybe the first time you went there and how you fell in love with it, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you for that background and thank you for including me. I also learned a ton at this conference. It was amazing to get so many interesting people in the room. And I
Yeah.
loved how much innovation was happening, including with your model at Kohana, because I
Okay.
think the real estate industry has so much opportunity for, kind of different types of thinking. And so it was fun to be in the room with people doing that in the
It
real
really
estate
was.
space. So
Yeah.
yeah, my name's Caroline Howell. I was born in Iowa originally, so I mostly grew up in Iowa, Minnesota. I'm a Midwest, United States Midwest kid, and basically in all the states where it turns into a complete ice box, like in the winter. I'm from there, and I went to school in Tennessee. I then spent most of my adult life in Denver, Colorado. So
Got it.
I moved to Panama about 3 years ago from Colorado, and I would call Colorado sort of my more recent home. I
Oh,
really
right.
love it
Right.
and was a big skier and all of this. So
Got it.
it was right at the end of COVID that I came down here for the first time and was like a lot of people, like had to get out of my house and
Right.
wanted to get away from it
Yeah.
for as long and fast as possible. And I was visiting down here on a surf and yoga retreat. It was actually meant to go to Costa Rica, but that retreat got canceled
Oh, wow.
because of the ongoing like travel restrictions there.
Mm.
But we were committed to leaving and going to surf by the end of this. And so I had a few girlfriends and I came down in this area and we found Playa Vinal and completely fell in love with it. It sort of imagined that I would go to Costa Rica like a lot of Americans
Right.
and Canadians and everybody else are sort of doing. And I loved the nature of Costa Rica. I love so many kind of parts of what, why a lot of people are really drawn to there. But when I visited here, it had, I think, all of the really cool parts of Costa Rica. It
Mhm.
was, the great nature, beautiful bay, incredible surfing.
Right.
But, and I was so pleasantly surprised because nobody really knows anything about
Right.
Panama. I find is that like the roads though were incredible. Like we had paved roads the entire way to this little town in the middle of nowhere, which you just don't
Right.
get in a lot of these other remote areas. And I was still working online and we had incredible connectivity, like very high speed internet the entire time that was incredibly reliable. And this bay of that we're in, which is Playa Vinao, it's actually not even a town or a place
Right.
exactly. It's
Like
really
a
just a
village.
beach
Right.
in a town called Pedesi, and it's about a 2 mile half moon bay. It's a sandy bottom beach break, surf break, and it's amazing. It's so beautiful to be inside of the bay. You sort of feel like hugged by the bay itself, and I just fell in love with it. I think there was a little bit of just I had to get out of the United States, and this
Right.
was like the very pretty place that I came to at the end of all of that, and so it was very easy to fall in love. But just the energy of the place, the ease of being here felt amazing. And I felt a really deep calling to the land here also. Like it was just, I really fell in love with the environment, with the ecology, with the community that was forming here. And so it was really love at first sight for me.
That's
And
amazing.
I decided to move a little bit later, and here I am, still living here.
So
Did
you
you?
said there's Canopy and Coco Bello. Maybe tell us like the differences between those two and what's happening and what those developments are.
Yeah, so I'm originally I purchased up some condos with a bunch of friends and family who wanted to get residency in Panama. So getting residency is really easy to do down here with an investment into a property. And so we started a little fund. We did that, and that really allowed me to see some different real estate opportunities on the land side that were a little bit bigger after that, once we had kind of learned how to purchase here and learned how to do deals here. And so it came available on the beach. Some of the last large developable land
Right.
within the bay became available for sale. And I had an investor and a partner. My partner down here is a guy named Omani Carson, who really wanted to do something interesting down here as well. So we saw this as an opportunity to kind of be a big part of the formation of this place to buy this last chunk of land on the beach. It also was, as a sister property, had another about 170 hectares of land back in the hills behind this land. So we saw the opportunity to buy both of these plots of land, and we decided to do it together. And it's been an
Mhm.
extraordinary partnership. So the two developments, one is I would say on the beach, which is Cocobolo, and by that, I mean there's a highway that comes all the way through to Vinao. If you're on the beach side of that highway, you're on the beach in Vinao. If you're on the hillside of
Right.
it, you're up in the hills.
Yeah.
So the beach side of our developments is called Cocobolo, 23 hectares, the last real kind of large land on the beach in the bay. And in that, it's a mixed use development. We'll have condos, lots. We'll do a new beach club. We'll have a new commercial area for the town. And then we have about 170 hectares of land on the other side of the highway, all west facing. You're sort of getting incredible sunset views over the bay. That is much hillier, and you're getting much more of the seclusion and privacy of the nature. And that development is called Canopy. So
Okay,
those are
got
our
it.
two projects,
All right.
and
Sounds
different
gorgeous.
That's a
different
lot.
products ultimately, but they really like work a lot together.
Connect
So
together.
yeah,
Interesting.
they're working together a
Sort of
lot.
one resort, right? Really, is what it is. Right.
Yeah.
So let me
So
ask. Okay.
mhm.
I was
Yeah,
going
no,
to
go
ask
ahead
you
there.
quickly,
Yeah.
did you, what was your relationship with the environment when you lived in Colorado? Were you always someone like, I'm going to move someone and I'm going to change the world? You know what I mean? Was that always like, was that always in your blood, or did you sort of fall in love with the idea when you were actually in Panama? Just curious.
It's really emerged, I would say. I didn't come here. When in the United States, I was working in investment banking and then private
Okay, yeah.
equity, but all in transactions. And I wanted to come down here to work a lot less. That was like the whole
Right.
intention. And I just can't quite help myself. So
Yeah.
I got involved with all of this. But so to answer your question, I've always loved nature. This
Right.
has always been a deep part of who I am. As a little girl, I would go to summer camp for a few weeks every summer, and it was all nature based. I was always an outdoor kid. Like that's my
It's
environment for sure. And in Colorado, that looked like skiing all the time or hiking every weekend, but definitely being up in the mountains. So nature's always been a
Would have been
huge
in the
part of
blood.
my experience. But I didn't come down here to like change the world. I came down here to actually have a much quieter life, to live much more simply. I wasn't sure that I would even live here full time when we first bought property. I thought I would sort of split time between the places, but
Right.
eventually just really fell in love. And now I spend most of my time here. So,
That's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. And the idea of regenerative communities, and I kind of looked around as I looked into this idea of what you're doing, and tried to find other communities or resorts or developments that do the same thing. And I'll be honest with you, I had a hard time finding them. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, I was like, I'm gonna have this great idea. I'm gonna connect all these together and we're gonna build this audience and stuff. And then I started looking for them. I couldn't find any. I was like, okay, well, that was a great idea, but didn't really work. So it's a kind of a unique situation that it appears to me that you've taken, you know, the idea of wellness and preservation to another level. And I think where did that come from and how did that become such a big part of what you're doing? Because it seems like that's the uniqueness of this project is the fact that you control the water, you can offer clean water, clean food, clean living, clean air, clean everything. And when I looked around, I found people that did sort of one or two of those things, but they weren't
Yeah.
all in on the whole thing. And I think that's really the uniqueness of this project. And maybe you can speak a little bit to that idea and where that comes from and what that future looks like.
yeah. So, one of the ways in which this project is forming, which I think is unique and is important as we talk about the story of all of it, is that the premise that my partner Omani and I started with was that this would be kind of a land banking play. Like, for sure, we knew we would want to develop it over time, but we really purchased this just believing in the area, believing in this. The place is so beautiful. So we wanted to move in a in a really real way to buy these assets, but we didn't come in with like this is our plan from the top down that most developments are doing.
Right.
And this has allowed me to develop everything quite a bit more organically and really develop it alongside of nature, which
Hmm.
has proven to have all kinds of incredible benefits. I'm discovering, I'm still discovering, but we didn't like have the idea and then develop it. I think what has instead happened was that we really loved the place. We bought the land that was available to us. We saw what was on that land, which in our case, I know the last large land on the beach in Cocobolo, and then up in Canopy, we really zoomed out and we actually discovered that we're a part of a biological corridor that's being planned in this entire region. Like it's not our corridor. But we sit inside of this corridor that is trying to bridge and restore the land between two different nature reserves.
Hmm.
Those nature reserves, one is a national park, another one is a nature reserve that is being preserved by some other wealthy families in the area. And by bridging this corridor with reforestation and restoring the land, we will actually accomplish what's a very interesting intellectual and ecological challenge, which is to restore an 80-kilometer biological corridor for a bunch of different endangered species of animals.
Mm.
And once we discovered that Canopy sits within this corridor, we were like, that's pretty cool. Like we'll be a part of it. This is a
Yeah, there you
fun,
go.
like this is a fun thing to be inspired by.
Right.
And given that we're in the middle of the most endangered ecosystem on the planet, it's called the tropical dry forest. We had this land that was previously cattle grazing land, so pretty much just grass everywhere. But gorgeous and beautiful. And we were like, great, let's of this initially we had purchased 83 hectares back there. Of this 83 hectares, let's reforest 25 of it so that we can bridge this tree canopy. And that will become a part of what we're offering to our residents. So come be a part of this native food forest effectively. There's
Right.
all sorts of native fruits and nuts and then we can build hiking trails through it and it can become this adventure outdoor park
Right.
basically for people. And that was sort of set us down this path of being what I would call us as a nature-based community where we're really forming around the restoration of the nature. And given that we are also a part of that natural system,
Right.
that as we restore it, we also see that we can also be restored. So, and when we thought about the development and the restoration of it, it kind of set us down this path of like, we also can buy the land around our quebrada or our ravine system. And so this allows us to really control the inflow of chemicals that are flowing into
Hmm.
the whole water system. And if we reforest it, we'll be able to ensure that that water is very clean, that we have the highest water retention, and that we really are able to ensure that we're delivering clean water to our residents. And so, again, this wasn't like a top-down thing. It was
Right.
really seeing what was already
Right.
there and
Yeah.
then
Which
really
is great. Which is
capitalizing.
great.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
can
I think
you
that's
can you explain what regeneration means? Like, so in other words, you're bringing a rainforest back to life, and then as a part of that, we'll be then growing food to keep the land to keep it sustainable, so that residents can then utilize that food. Or like, can you maybe just a little bit explain about what that regeneration looks like and what that is?
and why did it dry up? What happened? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, over the last 200 years, this entire region, the Estero Peninsula, has been deforested mostly for agricultural purposes. When the Spanish arrived, they converted a lot into cattle land, and then the United States for the build of the Panama Canal, a lot more, and it just became the culture down here, which is actually it's a very fun culture. It's basically like the Montana of Panama. It's like
Nice.
cowboy land down here.
Okay.
So super fun and but, cattle grazing is just most of the land use down
Mhm.
here. And so the deforestation happened largely because of that.
Got it.
And so when we talk about regeneration, what we're trying to I don't even want to say bring the land back to, because I don't think we're trying to restore it to any moment in time previously, but we do want to restore the land for the present day
Hmm.
and using native trees that help to facilitate bringing back the native ecosystem, which there are a lot of trees that are participate in a typical tropical dry rainforest. So we've restored the land. We've planted so far about 37, a little over 37,000 trees, all
Wow.
native to this area. And we've basically done the reforestation initiative mimicking what would happen in a wild rainforest. So we studied the pattern, I'll call it, of trees in different ecological zones on the land. So you have on top of a hill, on the sides of hills, along the quebrada, what are those species of plant life? And then you kind of mimic that in your own lands. And so that's the regenerative process. With
Nice.
those native species, you're getting a lot of different food, nuts, also medicinal plants. Like a lot of the barks and leaves are used for Ayurvedic medicinal purposes. And so, what we've ended up doing, somewhat intentionally, but somewhat just because it's felt good, is that we've kind of planted a wild and sovereign food and medicinal forest basically
Oh,
on a
wow.
lot of this land. And then alongside of that, because we're wanting to take that to the next level, and this is what's become quite intentional for us as our identity as developers in the restoration space, is that we really want the residents who live here to be nourished by the land that they're a part of restoring. And so that's looked like really innovating a lot of cool food systems that people will be able to eat from. So
Hmm.
all of our residents will be able to receive a box of very clean, no chemicals, organic
Ah,
grown
Nice.
food
like
on
a
the land.
CSA kind of setup almost. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly like that. Yeah. So as a part of their HOA, they'll receive a box, or we're trying to get cool baskets woven by locals down here to
Nice.
receive the food in.
Nice.
Very cool.
They'll
Love
they'll
that.
drink water that's very clean water, and they're also going to live in shelters that are really intentionally designed to integrate with the nature down here.
That's great. I have a question. When at the conference that we went to, they talked about the idea that it's really hard for countries and people to care for the land like you guys are because it's expensive and where's the money coming from, right? And I think that there was a comment that the uniqueness, one of the uniquenesses of this development and some of the other developments around is that they've tied the real estate into the protection of the land and the nourishment of the land moving forward. So there's a direct connection between real estate sales and the environment. And that generally doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So I think that's an interesting concept because I think everyone has aspirations of clean water, clean air, clean food, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, how do you do it is the real question. And is that accurate? And to describe it that way, that the real estate has become an important part of being able to do what you do?
Hmm.
Definitely. So I would say we're accomplishing it a couple of ways. And I think the I would say if we have a core mission, it is for us to remember that we are also nature. And so any degradation to the land and to the nature around us is also ultimately also hurting us. And when we believe this to be true and we know that this is true, it actually informs a lot of how we want to treat the land and
Right.
the, you know, the nature that we're a part of. And so when we are thinking about our product or our offering to potential buyers, we're we're basically integrating the health of the ecosystem as a part of what we're selling. So
Right.
in order to do that, because it's not necessarily obvious to everybody, they do need to like benefit from it somehow. And
Right.
for us, the direct benefit are there are very clear health benefits to drinking very clear, pure
Right.
water, very healthy food grown from high nutrient dense soil, and also to have there's all sorts of health benefits to connecting to
Right.
nature every single day. So
Absolutely.
there's clear health benefits in the restoration of this. There is also another method that we're um, pursuing and we're down the road on, which is that there's now this concept of nature-based credits in the world, and that is basically that the improvement of health in the land can be basically securitized and sold to as an asset. So there
Interesting.
are the most common example of this is carbon markets. The carbon
Yeah.
market
Yeah.
industry is facing a lot of challenges right now for all kinds of reasons.
Yes.
So we've decided to go a different route, which is biodiversity credits.
Yeah.
And basically, as we improve the biodiversity on the land, which we're measuring and we're going to be able to quantify, um, we will be able to sell those credits
Hmm.
to people who want to offset some of their, you know, impact environmentally. And so that's another method for our development to make money is sort of the ways that we're aiming to accomplish it.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it's
So,
always amazing to me how humans don't believe that they're part of nature. Is that the
Yeah.
craziest thing? I mean, it's the truth, though,
yeah.
right? We always look at it as
Yeah.
that's nature, like we're different, right? And it is really interesting. And one of the things I learned a lot about, which I mentioned before, is this idea of food security. And I watched the podcast yesterday morning with Dr. Zach Bush and his project in South Africa, which is where I'm from. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to listen. I have to listen. So I got up early. I listened to the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I have to get up early and listen to this? Because now I have all these ideas of what I want to do on Maui and everywhere else. Because it's a legitimate issue, right? Most people
Yeah.
don't understand that Los Angeles has 25 million people living there, and like one or two roads coming in, and that they're one earthquake away from being cut off from supplies, and they only have 3 days worth of supplies, which is insane,
Yeah, it's a
right? When you
complete
think about
food
it, and no one's
desert,
like, oh,
totally.
whatever, it's fine, you know, and that it's all a concrete jungle, and that all of the land in LA is almost all private backyard lawns. I
Yep.
mean,
Mhm.
that's LA, right? And I love the idea of making everyone plant 10 trees, food producing trees or medicinal trees. And if you imagine 25 million people planting 10 trees, it'd be a pretty amazing scenario. And I think that's really at the core of what we're talking about here is I live on an island, which is completely dependent on shipping, so that we only have, according to what I've heard, 6 days of supplies if our shipping gets cut off. But yet we have nothing that we're growing on the island, which is insane, right? So
So crazy.
maybe if you could speak to that a little bit about the mission of what the quality of our food is that we eat in America and why food security is so important.
Yeah, so I think that there are a couple of aspects to it. When what you're talking about is, I also am, I mean, I'm alarmed at the data that's out there for most big cities, not just not just for food security, but also that the the homes that they lived in. Dean, I think you and I were talking about this, that like if
Right.
something were to happen and if these homes were to burn down, the air that people would be breathing in is so toxic
Okay.
from the
Yeah.
materials that
Right.
of the homes that they're built with that
Right.
it would be it's a chemical war zone,
That's
if
crazy.
you go into
Yeah.
most of these cities. And that's alarming that we're like living inside of this and
That's right.
breathing in these
Yeah.
toxins.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's also one of our in our design guidelines is that our buildings will be made with largely non-toxic
Non-toxic
materials.
material.
But I think that the yeah, around the food issue. So, I mean, a lot of things have happened. Like, I think in general, we've just the game of capitalism, and I'm not against capitalism, but like,
Yeah. Right.
I think
Right.
it's a model, and it's a model that, if you want to promote a certain outcome, it's a great model. But what it has promoted in the food space is that, um, of how do we scale and industrialize everything as much as possible. And it's gone to a level that I don't think makes a lot of sense. Like the result of that food system is that you've got farmers, local farmers who are really struggling to compete with all of the large food
Mass
giants.
producers. Yeah. But
Yeah,
look at the quality
the
of the
people who
mass
are
production.
actually
Yeah.
yeah, the people who are actually in the community and who are, you go back 50 years are the ones who, you're looking at the growers of your food. You're going to church with them, you're meeting them
Right. Right.
like at the post office every day.
Yeah.
So there's this like local accountability to the way that
Right.
the food is grown
Right.
and everything else.
Right.
And then, this desire to scale and to produce so much more food for everybody resulted in the need to produce chemicals
Yeah.
in order to preserve the
Right.
food, in order to save it from different pests, in order to make it more long lasting for transportation.
Right.
And so we're the only species on Earth,
Yeah.
we have to be, that are literally spraying the food to kill
Yes.
other living creatures with poison and
Right.
then eating that
And then eating
poison
it.
ourselves.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
it's
It's
very
insane,
weird.
right?
It's a
Why
very
are we doing
like
that? Doesn't
like
make a
it's
lot
a
of
head
sense.
scratcher,
Yeah.
It's a very
It doesn't make any
um
sense. And what I learned at the conference again was that the standards of the quality of what goes into our food and what's sprayed on our food is like the second worst regulated standards that we've imposed on ourselves in the world, second to Brazil. We're like the second most toxic, we're eating the second most toxic food in the world.
Yeah.
And we're
yeah.
living in toxic structures. Like, I'm on Maui. We had the big fire over here that everyone knows about. The houses all burned to the ground. And everyone else is freaking out about a whole bunch of other reasons, which are, emotional based reasons. I'm standing there going, why is when our house burns down, why does it become toxic waste that we can't even breathe?
Yeah.
And then you start looking into, well, we're building with wood that's soaked in arsenic
That's right.
to prevent termites. And I'm like, whoa, I'd rather have the termites, by the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really kind of strange, but I think it's just you're right. It's sort of forced on us by the massive amounts of people that need to be taken care of, and we've gone away from the way that we were. Look, people survived for a long time before we were around. You know what I mean? Somehow they didn't have doctors with all these medicines. They didn't have all spraying all the foods and stuff. And somehow they made it through just fine. We're the generations that are all dying of cancer. You know what I mean? And wondering about, whoa, that's just weird. What's going on
How's
here?
that happening?
It's pretty
Yeah.
clear, pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's becoming more and more aware. There's an awareness that's creeping into our world. I was sort of just like, whoa, my world is upside down right now because I'm realizing what we're eating, what we're drinking, and what we're living in is all toxic. And how do we change that, right? As a return? Well, we change it with, I think, supporting models like this to expand into our markets and not supporting models that don't support the environment.
Hmm.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, I'm not a statistician or a doctor, but I think that it is interesting that like we're some of the worst food quality in terms of the amount of toxins that are sprayed on it and just its transportation and in general, just our disconnection from it. Like to me, the
Right.
other beautiful part, besides the health benefits, it's also so fun to receive a box of
It
fresh
is.
food
It
Oh
is.
yeah.
grown from land that you can walk across the street and go look at it growing, and
Yeah.
it
And grow it
reconnects you to
yourself.
that nature.
Right.
that
Absolutely.
we've been, yeah. So it's a very beautiful experience. And yeah, I can't say that like the correlation is equal to causation around this, but it's not surprising to me that like for all of the medical spending that occurs in the United States, that, we're one of the least effective health systems globally also.
Hmm.
And it just to me is an indication, at least at minimum, that regardless of the health and the wellness modalities that exist out there, which there are so many growing modalities, which is
Right.
amazing, if it's not building on the foundation of healthy food, pure water, and healthy living environment, like the core essentials of our health, I think it's building on a fairly weak foundation in
Right.
general. Like no
Right.
matter what you spend on stem cells and you go get like the all the biohacking that exists and everything else, like if we're not addressing the biological health through what we're consuming in our connection to the natural world, then I think that it's just kind of building on a less stable foundation. And so this is really what we're trying to
Right.
accomplish is in the world of all of this, like everything is artificial and AI
Right.
and all of this,
Right.
like
Right.
how do we really improve the biological intelligence of
Right.
us as a species, which is the differentiator between us and all. Everybody's afraid of AI. It's like, I don't know, AI.
I think it's great.
What if we invest
Yeah.
into our biological intelligence, our biological health? And then from there, we can maybe decide what feels good, what's going on. But like, let's be back in our bodies, be back connected to the natural
Right.
systems around
Right.
ourselves. And then, and from a more connected place, make decisions on where we go next.
I love it.
Yeah.
I want to briefly shift the conversation for a quick second. So we're a co-ownership vacation home company primarily. So when we're going to be bringing owners or bringing people to the island, they're going to be vacationing. And I looked on your website and your Instagram page. There seem to be a lot of like really fun festivals and events, a lot of cool stuff to do on the island. What is it primarily? Like, what do people do when they come to the area? How are they having fun? What are these fun festivals? Maybe can we maybe speak to that for a minute? Yeah.
Definitely. So we're not quite an island, we're a peninsula. So we still can be accessed from
My
driving. And
apologies. My
yeah,
apologies.
people, yeah, but yeah, almost,
It is
almost
like an
there.
island.
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Yeah. Um, and so the community here is also a really big, important part of the healthy environment that exists here. So we have a lot of fun together. There are these festivals that have been going on for many years here. There's one called Reactor that takes place in the spring, and it's about a week long festival on the beach. And there's different places, so it's not keeping people up all night for a full week. So they have different like places that they're doing the events. But that's existing every spring, and it's a great place for the community to come and have fun together. We live in a very remote place in the middle of nowhere. There's all kinds of cultures who are living here. Americans and Canadians are actually, I think, fourth in terms of size of demographic. So it's a really diverse area. And it's, I think, given the fact that we are in the middle of nowhere, and there's this kind of camaraderie of like, how do we
Right.
do this and how do we live in a modern way but in the middle of nowhere, and it takes a lot of collaboration. And so we also really like to, in the spirit of like all living together and feeling this bond of this community that we're all building together, we also like to have a lot of fun together. So there are
Mhm.
these festivals going on. There's also a ton of community built surfing. I mean, surfing is a really core foundational part of what's going on here
Right on.
because of the way that the bay is shaped. The center point of the bay has really large waves. We have a lot of the Panamanian national team who lives here and
Oh,
is
really?
surfing here and training here. And then
Oh, nice.
all the way to on the sides of the bay, it's pretty well protected from the edges of the land. And so we have little kids, like literally like 3 and 4 year olds are out there
Right.
surfing. And so it becomes this incredible bonding activity for the whole community. A lot of people find it because of surfing. And then we have all sorts of beautiful waterfalls and hiking
Mhm.
and a lot of what you would imagine doing in these tropical landscapes to just really enjoy the nature.
Good.
So people are coming. There's a lot of wellness. There's a lot of yoga, breath work, sound journeys. a
Nice.
lot of those kind of community events as well. We have an incredible food scene. We've got over 30 restaurants here. And for a small
Oh,
town, it's like a very
That's amazing.
popular little foodie
how many
destination.
people,
So,
how many people live in the area
Yeah.
permanently?
so it's a growing number. I would say I would put it at a little under 1,000 who are here most of the time. You have the full range. Like this is my only home, but I'm probably here 9 months of the year because
Right,
you're
right,
just
right,
visiting home or
right.
traveling around. So people who would call this their primary home, I would say that there's a little under 1,000 people, and
Right.
then we have a lot of people here though, like who would really benefit from the use of your model, where they're here for 3 months, 4 months
Right.
of the year, six
Right.
months of the year, and um, yeah, and they're enjoying the nature for that chunk of
The
time,
nature.
and then they're off to wherever else for the rest of the time. So it's
So do
fun.
your owners have an option to participate in the restoration and the ecological part of what you're
Mhm.
doing there in nature? Did I read somewhere there was like a certification maybe
Mm.
that could be attained by your owners to be integrated into this world of what you're doing over here?
So yeah, there are a few ways. So one, a percentage of all of our sales goes to the restoration of the land in our area. So just by buying a property with us, that's
You're
happening.
supporting it.
And then we have volunteer opportunities. So we have a partner who's a local NGO down here called Proaco Asuero. They actually just won the UNESCO Award for Education globally. So they're, I mean, they're
Oh, wow.
they're an incredible nonprofit
Cool.
who are really down here training a lot of the rural local community on land restoration. And so how do we from the bottom up at the education level really change the narrative on restoring the ecosystem here. So they're our reforestation partner, and people are also able to come out and plant trees to get their hands dirty. It's fun. It's like it's super muddy
Yeah,
and you're a
absolutely.
mess afterwards,
Absolutely.
but it's an amazing experience.
Right.
And then in terms of a certification, so people are also able to donate additionally to this for sure. The certifications that we're offering to people is that all of our buildings meet the requirement of the Well Building Institute's requirements for wellness. And so the buildings are built with this, but also the fact that the food systems and the water systems are also as a part of this, that, it's kind of I'd say, well plus certification.
Right, right,
And just by investing into a property here, it's going into ensuring that land restoration. So yeah,
right,
it's a
right.
full system.
And I'm in it too, man. And my quarter acre property that I live in here in Maui has like 50 different fruit trees and vegetables just in this little space beyond my big pool. It's like a little area there. But yeah, I think it's a sign of the times. But I have to say that, I've gotten so much like joy out of growing things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just eating, right? It's healthy food, but it's like a healthy life too. And it's a inspiring and motivating part of my life that keeps me excited about what I do every day. It's become my passion. And I think that ultimately for people, going out and planting trees and watching them grow and watering them and eating the food is an incredible experience, in my opinion. Changed a lot of I was one of those people that just worked all the time, right? And I think I have a performance coach, and she made me get a couple hobbies, and I decided like, oh, I'll plant some stuff, whatever. Now I'm like completely addicted. I get up every morning at 5:30, then no phone. I do my dawn patrol of the garden and pick fruit and stuff like that and come in and take that time of dead peace and quiet with no phones ringing and in my garden. And that has really changed my life because it's a place where I can get clarity of my life and clarity of what I'm doing and my purpose and the rest of it that I just never had time to think about. What I mean? So I think there's a personal, not growth, but just a personal feel good part of this that is sort of unspoken, but I think ultimately to me that would be one of the major draws would be for me to be able to go there and participate in growing trees and vegetables and then doing that. I think it's just a personal satisfaction that comes with it that we're underestimating and that we're not separate from nature, that we are nature. And I think that kind of proves it to me. It was like, walking around, just the idea of being grounded, and walking around my garden and stuff has changed my life in many ways. So
But I
I
think
get
you're on
it.
the right side of this movement, right? Like this is happening in communities all over the country where people are, like I said earlier, joining a CSA. They have a farm plot. We were talking about this yesterday, and Dean had this great idea of doing this on your own property, like promoting people doing it here. So it really is holistic. It's really become a part of your life. And then why not, when you're on vacation, go to that space and bring that
Bring it
holistic
with you.
life with you? Why leave it in and
Yeah,
be in place that isn't a part of who you are as a person and what you're doing every day. It's just I think it's the right side of this movement of people wanting to be healthy everywhere they go.
right,
Completely. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think it's it's funny because there are so many intangible benefits to the connection to
right,
nature, and just like you're saying, Dean, your morning routine of being out in nature. But I think what I've noticed in a conversation that has been kind of around lately for me is around the fact that, like, I think so the reason we've gotten so far away from our food systems and from nature and everything else is like we've just sort of lost the context for it. We've
right,
sort of forgotten that we
right,
are a part of nature because we live in these cities designed to separate us
right,
completely from it. And so when you
right,
don't have that context, when it's not right next to you, the fact that wow, it feels so good to watch this plant grow up next to me,
right,
and
right,
that there's this inherent
right.
value that you receive and well-being that you feel in that we just forget because
Right.
that is
Right.
we're not around it and we don't have the
You're not
context
around
around it
it.
for it. So,
Busy lives, like kids think that vegetables come from a grocery store, you know what I mean? And my kids are planting, so they get like there's plants all over the place. There's no pretty flowers in my house. It's all like, what can I eat? You know what I mean? And I don't know why it's become such a passion, but it is, right? But I also understand that it's lacking in a lot of places. And if you look at the history of the world and human species, that's how we survived a long time doing that. You know what I mean? And then we came along and screwed it all up. But I think ultimately, like colonialism changed our world because it extracted people out of their worlds and their spaces and put them somewhere else where they weren't, didn't know how to function. And I'm from South Africa, which was one of the most classic cases of that. Apartheid was exactly that. Like you have to live over there now. We decided.
Yeah.
And it put people into spaces that they couldn't function. And the project that's going on with Dr. Zach in South Africa right now is a great example of these people that were just isolated in this area and they had nothing. They were desperate poverty. They was like the highest rates of spousal abuse and kid abuse, and they were just sitting there in a destitute, miserable world with nothing. And this idea of getting and coaching and training and mentoring these people to plant 10 trees each and create a community that they is completely thriving now. These people are standing around singing and dancing
Mhm.
instead of beating the crap out of each other like they were before. You know what I mean? There's something there, right? And it's
Yeah.
restoring that life back to the way it was and what we kind of where we came from. And there's a lot of education that comes with that. But I think ultimately that's a really great example of, yeah, we haven't given people much of a chance. And we've just grown so fast, the world, that we've left everyone behind. And now all of a sudden we go, "Damn, what the hell did we just do?" We're eating toxic food, living in toxic homes, abusing each other, fighting with each other, and it's a bit of a mess, is what it is. But I think that you can straight, we have to go back to nature, in my opinion, to be able to get a sensibility back into our world again. And I think that example of what's going on in South Africa is a great example of, yeah, man, look how inspired these people are. They have food, they're happy, and they lived a miserable existence up until that point. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah. Not that I
no,
feel a
it's
responsibility
a
coming
very
from South Africa,
inspiring.
but it's everywhere, you know what I mean? And I think that it's a good example. And to me, that means, man, I could do that in my community. I live on an
Yeah,
island that doesn't produce any food, which is insane, right? And could I convince everyone to plant 10 trees in their backyard and all be in a situation where we could actually survive more than 6 days if we didn't have shipping coming in, you know?
yeah,
Or LA has 3 days of, what it would be an incredible effort to get all those people to make it that kind of a different, a minimally difference could make such a huge difference when you think about we're one catastrophe away from major catastrophe. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Where people are going to be isolated with no food and water, And I think that it hasn't happened. We're definitely not prepared for it though. That is
Yeah.
clear, and I think there's a big education process coming. So thank you for being a part of it and
Yeah.
setting the example, which I think is amazing. And our goal is to showcase it as much as possible because we're believers. And I think also, you talked about the remoteness of your community and that it's not like there's not major hospitals and schools all around. I mean, it's small and intimate. So I think the idea of people coming there for 1, 2, or 3 months at a time is a really interesting idea because, it's just so hard for people to pick up and move there permanently with the busy worlds that we live in. But to be able to spend 1 month or 2 months or 3 months a year in an environment like this would be what everyone really needs. I think we should force everyone to do that because it's like a timeout. You
Yeah.
look what you've done to our world. Now you need to take a time out and you go for a month somewhere else and plant trees. I think that
Yeah.
that should be a new world order, I think. But there's so
Yeah.
much to learn from it. I'm still, trying to understand the lingo, and I have a friend that keeps correcting me and saying you're just saying the wrong words, and so it's really kind of fun for us to learn more, and we appreciate what you're doing, and love the fact that we're partners with you guys, and can't wait to get rolling.
So if someone
Yeah. No.
if somebody wanted to, outside of going to our website and talking to us, like what's the best way for someone to learn about how they can buy and how they can invest in your development?
Yeah. Well, so our website is cocobolovanao.com. I think you guys have that on your flyers, and then we have canopyvanao.com. And so, I mean, they're welcome to reach out. We've got a sales office that they're able to speak with. But Dean, I think what you're saying around spending 1 or 2, 3 months here is totally right. That is what I would say most of the people in Vanao are doing that, and what your model really enables them to do is to participate in that kind of reasonable amount of time. For most people, that is kind of the right amount of time down here. And then also, they'll really participate in the investment upside because this is a very fast growing community. So as opposed to just going down here and renting, if they want to be a part of it, they get to participate and really invest
Right.
into
Right.
the efforts that are going on down here from a values perspective. Value aligned, I think initiatives are available down here for people interested in the space. And then also, I will say we actually do have two schools here that are getting spun up, and there is a new hospital coming in, and so all of this infrastructure
Right.
is arriving,
It's
and
coming, yeah.
I think this will also really improve the experience for people to be here for longer, and for sure the investment, the value creation is there on the investment side, given this infrastructure is coming in as well. So we're really excited about these initiatives and yeah, for sure reach out to you guys, come down, come walk in canopy
We
with
need to
us.
get
It's a
there.
really beautiful
Yeah.
experience, and we're thrilled to be partnered with you guys, and for people who
Awesome.
really share the same values, it's really meaningful for us to build out these
Great.
partnerships. So thank you guys, we really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. Thank you. Let
And
us
we're
know what we
excited
can
to be a
do.
part of it. Thank you.
Yeah. And how we can help. Let us know. Is there
Yeah.
anything that we didn't ask you that you wanted to mention or anything that as a closing thought, maybe before an hour has flown by.
Yeah, it
I
went
love
by
this
really
subject,
fast.
so I could go on for hours about it, but maybe we'll come back for another one. But yeah, is there anything
Yeah.
else that you want to say before we depart?
I think so I would call it like the resilience of the story is a really important part of the story in terms of food sovereignty, water, security, all of this. I think the other part of it for me that has just been even more rewarding, like the world, it hasn't come to an end. We're not at the
Right,
end
right,
yet.
right.
We have an opportunity to turn things around. And I think whether or not people have an interest in being a part of what we're doing down here, I love your guys' idea of like, what if everybody turned their backyard grass, like
Hmm.
fairly non-productive land, into something cool and connected to nature? And if nothing else, I'm hopeful that people are feeling just generally inspired by the beauty of these projects and
Right,
like you're saying, Dean, to spend time in your backyard or go for a hike outside. It's like I think there's both a lot of downside protection in it, and then there's just enormous upside in the well-being benefits that exist in reconnecting with the beauty of the natural world, and to remember that we're a part of it. Like we don't have to live
right,
these
right.
lives that are destructionist, and that that we have the opportunity to really build and be a part of something beautiful. So,
Right, exactly
anyways, I
right.
think that's the only thing I guess I feel inspired that these projects have really shown me, and I feel really honored and humbled that this is how I get to, create and be a part of something really beautiful down here. So it's fun.
Set the example.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
for you. I mean, I think in terms of our first guest, we knocked it out of the park. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, I
yeah,
love
right
the
on.
idea.
Great. Thanks for a great hour.
Yeah. Thanks for a great hour. One of the things I picked up from Zach's thing yesterday which applies is changing humanity through nature. Because I think what's happening of humanity, man, what's going on here, people? And how do we spin that around? And I think, yeah, the idea, you guys are on the right track, which is let's get people back into nature, and that will help with that transition back to becoming a little more humane to each other, you know. So we appreciate everything you're doing. Thanks for setting the example, and thanks for partnering with us. We're super excited about it.
Looking forward to getting
Can't wait
down
for our
there.
first sale, you know.
Yes. Yeah, we're so excited to have you guys. And yeah, thank you for everything you're doing and all the efforts. It's been really fun to work with you guys as well. So really
Yeah.
appreciate it.